Hello, everyone. I trust you are staying safe and well. It is my honor to discuss my career journey with you today. And so I hope you find the information I share today helpful. Briefly, a quick introduction. My name is Dr. Robert or Bob Kumi. I'm a pharmaceutical scientist and regulatory affairs professional with over 23 years of experience. I currently work with a consulting firm with headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts called Halloran Consulting Group, and I work remotely from home. Prior to working as a consultant, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry at various companies, including Boehringer Ingelheim, located here in Richfield, Connecticut, and also at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals in Tarrytown, New York. Before joining the industry, I worked with the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, as a scientific reviewer. Today, I will be talking about my career and address some of the questions you raised as PHS students. And hopefully this will be helpful as you reflect on potential careers. And my discussion or topics will be focused on the pharmaceutical industry. So the first question I'd like to tackle is, how and why did you choose this career? So I chose this career based on my educational background. In high school, I was on the science track as opposed to the arts, as we called it in my school. And typically in the scientific track, you would either be an engineer, medical doctor, pharmacist, or a scientist. And I considered all of the above stated options in science, and I was really most inclined towards becoming a scientist. And that's because I enjoyed solving problems. For example, I liked deriving equations or solving proofs, and honestly was not very good at memorization that was required for some of the other disciplines. I was also pretty good in math and chemistry. So I actually pursued chemistry as a major. And I also had a minor in biochemistry. So after completing my Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry, I wanted to go into a field that could leverage my chemistry background as well as expand my knowledge. Therefore, I considered moving into chemical engineering and petroleum chemistry, as they were both pretty lucrative at the time. And they were important fields. However, I was introduced to pharmaceutics by a relative who was in the field, and over time I developed an interest in this field. And ultimately, that's where I landed, and I'm pretty happy with the choice I made to be in the pharmaceutical industry. Next, I'd like to tackle the question which asks, what are the most and least rewarding aspects of your job? So in terms of what I find most rewarding, it's definitely great, to know at the end of the day that your input and your work actually leads to approval of a product. That is a product which has been shown to have sufficient efficacy and safety. It's really great when you can do this, knowing that you've helped a patient who needs relief from some kind of chronic or life-threatening condition. So while I was at FDA, I was involved in many product reviews and approvals, and also in industry, I've been fortunate enough to work on a couple of products that are approved. So what I find cool or rewarding is to see TV ads about the products that I've worked on, and to be able to say and know that I was part of the solution that is involved in the process of getting this drug approved, either as one of the primary people involved or at least part of a company that did that. So on the flip side, obviously, not every product that is developed gets approved. So that's a little not rewarding at times, but that's just the way life is. As you know, not everything works out. But I think for me, when a product fails or doesn't advance because there wasn't good science behind it, or there was poor sort of teamwork and bad decisions were made, that's what I find really disappointing in my field. All right, so next I'd like to answer the question, what are the working conditions? Examples are in terms of stress, pace, physical comfort, travel, relocation, hours, etc. So I would say, there's a mix, that's in my experience, of these so-called working conditions. And, just starting on the top with stress, definitely there are times of stress. However, there are times to relax. And it's really important that you develop a good sense of balance, that is, strike a good balance. And in the picture that you see there, I think that really says it all. It was actually taken when I went to Japan to meet with the health authority there before submitting a product for marketing authorization. The meeting went pretty well, so I was all smiles after the meeting, but obviously preparing for the meeting, traveling to Japan and so forth was pretty stressful. But again, at the end of the day, it worked out well. So, just you sort of have to get that balance. From day to day, I spend a lot of time behind the computer or on the phone. Zoom meetings, etc., are really the norm in my field. We used to use Skype a lot as well. So I think one important thing to sort of alleviate the stress is to make sure I'm intentional about taking breaks. So for example, I need to stand up, I have a mobile workstation that goes, you can adjust the height. So I try to stand up every now and then. Maybe in some meetings, I take them standing rather than sitting down. It's also important to, stretch, take breaks, maybe take a walk as often as you can, just to keep yourself active. Other things I do at work, just in terms of sort of that capacity of, hours, routine, etc. I tend to do a lot of research in that I have to try to figure things out. So this means reading articles and really thinking through things, trying to solve situations or thinking on the fly, really. And my role is to propose solutions, get teams to work together. So I work on presentations, learn to discuss things, negotiate a lot in team settings. And importantly, really at times you have to defend a position, which may not always be the popular one, but really just having that ability to try to really achieve a common objective is really important. And then lastly, I'll talk about just the pace of work. So definitely I've been in different environments where at times it's really fast paced, others more steady. And really, I think it depends on your temperament and just your disposition as to the type of job. So definitely before you go in for a job in the industry, you really should, during the interview, find out about, how the work culture is. That's really important. Um, and there was also a part about traveling, relocation, and so forth. So definitely some jobs do need you to travel. For instance, if you're maybe more on the commercial side or advertising, promotion, so forth, you might need to go around to get input from various people on how to market a product and so forth. But at times you don't really have to travel a lot. In my role, I tended to travel on average once a month, roughly once to twice a month. So about, six trips a year. But it was, pretty manageable on the whole. And of course, in this world of globalization and company mergers and so forth, at times, unfortunately, some facilities close down, so you might have to relocate, etc. So it all depends on the job you're in. Next, I'd like to talk about education requirements, which again was a question. So for what I do and people in the pharmaceutical industry in general, I would say that a college degree is typically required. And really having an advanced degree, especially in like my profession or things I've done, is definitely beneficial. You'll see job descriptions which say, quote unquote, advanced degree preferred. And at times that can really serve you well. So if you don't have that many years of experience, having that advanced degree helps because you sort of exhibited the ability to think critically and to really work on sort of complicated topics and contribute to science or research in some way. So definitely something worth considering. I'll pivot now to maybe look a little earlier in time, which is part of the question I just answered, in terms of the types of courses. And I'll go down memory lane a bit. So really, I finished high school quite a while ago, but I still remember that the courses I took in math, science, and believe it or not, importantly, English, were very important for me, even as far back as middle school. I actually remember my middle school teacher's name. That's the English school teacher. He really had a profound effect on my education. And so basically what he asked us to do, back then we called it junior high, by the way, not middle school. He gave us weekly assignments where we'd have multiple words, I think up to 20 each week. And for each word, you had to write three different sentences looking at different definitions for the word. So for instance, if it's used as a noun or a verb, and really put something down which you could understand and just state in the sentence. So if there weren't multiple definitions, at a minimum, you'd have to look at the opposite or antonym, or you'd have to look at a synonym or a word that sounded the same. So this really helped me because it helped me think outside the box. So just really not just limiting myself to one definition of a word was really helpful. And I think that helped me to get out of thinking about things in just one way. So building on that in college, because again, I was a science major, I had to take chemistry, physics, and biology, which were pretty challenging, but I actually enjoyed, learned a lot. But now in the current age, I think with so many more options in terms of what you can take for your majors, if I could go back in time, I would really probably have taken a course on creative and or technical writing, and pretty much just do something outside of my major field. So for example, as a science major, I would have loved to have taken a course now in business or marketing, or even economics, because ultimately in the industry that I'm in, it's really important to, quote unquote, speak or understand a language outside of your chosen field. Because when you work on these teams, not everyone is a scientist. You have to work with people who have different backgrounds, especially when you're working on a product that will be commercialized. So I'll skip on to words of advice now, and just really, just things for you all to consider as you think about colleges and career choices. So I like to quote an author called Stephen Covey. He wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've read it more than once. Really recommend it to you. Also, it's a good read. And really sets a solid foundation for how to approach careers and life in general. So the quote he has is, begin with the end in mind, as one of those habits. And really, the principle, at least I take from it, is that it is really important that you achieve a goal or have a goal in mind, so that you start somewhere. With the clear understanding that, your ultimate destination, you might have to go on a road that's not always smooth. At times there'll be detours, there'll be traffic jams, but other times too, there'll be smooth sailing. So you really have to just embrace those things as you go along, in college, etc., in life, and really encourage you to persevere and not to give up. And really learn from each experience. So, in your classes, in your projects, what have you, whether positive or negative, really learn something from them. And at the end of the day, if you can say you really gave it your best, did your best effort, I think that's really getting to that end goal from my view. So I'll end my presentation, or at least my comments, just to address the comments of, where can I find more information? So again, if you want to get into the pharmaceutical industry, I would suggest maybe start off by visiting the websites of some of the well-known established pharmaceutical companies. You can just do like a simple Google search, top 100 pharmaceutical companies, and you'll see a list of companies you probably recognize, pretty much advertising on TV all the time. And just look at, review their job postings, and they'll tell you about their requirements for jobs. And also just in terms of the type of job, one day, like with a company, really pay attention to the various programs they offer, and compare, review their vision and mission statements. I think that's really important. Just understand what they stand for, and to see if your goals and your perspective on life really aligns. That is, see that your why matches with their why and their purpose. So with that, I will end, and thank you for your attention. Hopefully this was helpful. I wish you all the best in your career, and college pursuits and so forth. Okay then, take care, stay safe. Bye.